let's hop across the pond. Let's hop across the pond. That picture of Theresa May is jarring, but you know, we need to get away from this thing of not showing the real world hurt and pain that individuals go through as they pursue their affairs. And in this case, pursuing the affair of Brexit. Now, in pursuing the affairs of Brexit, Theresa May is not doing well. She is having a difficult time with this. Now, there's a big vote that's coming up on the 14th, I believe, Tuesday, a withdrawal agreement. And as it stands, she does not have the votes. She was supposed to go back to the EU and come back with something that's changed. Nothing has changed. The changes have been, as members of the DUP have called it, meaningless. She's essentially bringing the same bill back that was going to suffer magnificent defeat, the worst defeat in the government's history. So, as they do the business of Brexit, two items, relatively big items and their implications, came up, and the government has lost both. It's as if Theresa May has lost control of her government. The first one took place, I think it was 2 days ago. That one is more symbolic, but the symbolism is going to have jarring consequences for the government. Theresa May was handed a humiliating defeat in Parliament by Labour and Conservative MPs who organized to demonstrate the strength of parliamentary opposition to leaving the European Union with no deal. What they mean by this is there's been a faction that has organized themselves of Labour and Conservative MPs that have decided that they were going to be against a no-deal Brexit. And in flexing their muscles against Theresa May in regards to what they can accomplish working together on this, they were able to defeat the government. And not just defeat the government, has kind of threatened that we could continue to do this between now and March, making amendments and setting, let's say, changing bills with the opposition or with you could say with the majority that they've been able to cobble together. Take a look at this. MPs voted 303 to 296 in favor of an amendment to a finance bill tabled by Labour's Yvette Cooper to curb some of the government's tax administration powers in the event of a no deal without explicit authorization from Parliament. Essentially putting a leash on the government, meaning they have to go through Parliament. The catch for this is, though, they admit that the issue here, this may not necessarily have a big effect in practice. The effect that it has, right here, privately, those behind the amendment's success concede it may have little material effect on no-deal preparations. Instead, its purpose has been to galvanize MPs across the House and prove that there is a parliamentary majority to oppose a no-deal, which they expect could grow when subsequent amendments are tabled to other bills, which could have wider-reaching consequences. As amendments are tabled, people become less likely to support those things if those amendments are able to carve people away from a support. A deal in Parliament is somewhat difficult to reach because people have dissonant ideas on what they agree on. In this case, you have a group that have cobbled themselves together from the standpoint of Labour and from the standpoint of Tories in order to oppose no deal and flex their muscles on this. There's an interesting part to this. Right here. I like the way they say this. The latest blow for May comes after a day the government suffered a significant defeat in the finance bill in which a powerful cross-party group of MPs led by Labour's Yvette Cooper passed an amendment limiting the government's tax administration powers in the event of the UK leaving the EU with no deal. Its purpose was to prove that there was a parliamentary majority to oppose no deal, and cross-party group of rebels who organized Tuesday's defeat and said they could seek to amend any and every piece of legislation the government brings to Parliament between now and March. It looks like Theresa May has lost control to her government. The thing that came today, or yesterday, which was just as stinging and has more of a consequence, is a Plan B. Now, the loss here, and there's some controversy within this loss, and I'm going to show some of the controversy, but what it boils down to is Theresa May will be obliged to present MPs with a new Brexit plan within 3 days after a current proposal is voted down next week, after a procedural amendment to Plan B's progress through the Commons was passed amid chaotic scenes. That's the part that needs more explanation. As a procedural amendment to the plan's progress through the Commons was passed amid chaotic scenes. Now, this was done by Dominique Grieve, I think you pronounce his name. The amendment to the business motion for the plan, drawn up by Conservative former Attorney General Dominic Grieve, gives May the deadline to put forward a new plan if she loses the vote, as expected next Tuesday. The amendment was passed 308 to 297 following stormy scenes in which a series of Conservative MPs castigated Speaker John Bercow for allowing the amendment. Now, their argument is this amendment wasn't supposed to be added. This wasn't supposed to be allowed. A previous amendment by Grieve, voted through the Commons before Christmas, means that any statement that follows a defeat is in itself amendable, allowing MPs to put forward their own alternatives for the future of the Brexit process. So if May came back with an alternative plan and that could be amended by MPs, giving Parliament far more scope in setting direction. If that plan gets voted down, which is expected to get voted down, that's assuming May goes through with it, then Parliament will be, the government will be expected to deliver a Plan B within 3 days. Not to mention, Parliament gets a say-so in the direction of anything that the government comes up with. This is somewhat of a big deal. Now, take a look at this. This is some of the scenes that took place, and Bercow is explaining why he allowed this. What it boils down to is Bercow made the decision to allow this amendment. Now, supposedly there wasn't supposed to be any hearings allowed on the motion, but Bercow kind of makes his argument that, well, I am not allowing any hearings to be held on this. I, in my role, have the authority for me to be able to pull certain amendments that I want to and attach them to the motion. There's nothing that says I can't do that. This is exactly what I'm doing because I believe this is for the betterment of the whole. A part of this argument is our deadline is coming fast and we need to have this timetable needs to be faster. But they hated him for this. Part of what Theresa May is trying to do is trying to create a ticking clock scenario. And over again, Parliament is trying to prevent her from being able to implement this ticking clock scenario. Bercow doing this forces them to come up with a plan much sooner, like 3 days. Take a look at the scenes, though, and I'm going to let Bercow explain himself. Again, this is somewhat of a lawyer's argument. It is true that we can't have hearings on this, but we're not having a hearing on it. I'm just doing it. I have the authority to do it. I'm doing it. And they're asking him to publish, like, statements or conversations that he had with somebody else. They went after him on this for an hour, but I'm only going to show part of it.
Judgments are not questioned by members of the House. I am clear order. I'm not in the business of invoking precedent, nor am I under any obligation to do so. I think the honourable gentleman will know that it is the long-established practice of this House that the Speaker in the chair makes judgments upon the makes judgments upon the selection of amendments, and the order and those judgments are not questioned by members of the House. I am clear order. I am clear in my mind that I have taken the right course. Let me say this by way of explanation to the honourable gentleman and to the House. The motion in the Prime Minister's name is indeed a variation of the order agreed by the House on the 4th of December. Under paragraph 9 of that order, the question on any motion to vary the order should be put forthwith. I interpret that to mean that there can be no debate. But the terms of the order, I must advise the House, do not say that no amendment can be selected or moved. I cannot allow debate, but I have selected the amendment in the name of the Right Honourable and Learned Gentleman, the member for Beaconsfield. At the appropriate point, I will invite him to move it once the motion has been moved. That is the position. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. A point of order, Mr. Mark Francois.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For the convenience of the House, I have brought with me a copy of the original business motion, which says very clearly, and which was passed by this House on the 4th of December 2018. Under the general paragraph, towards the end of the motion, Mr. Speaker, it says, and I quote, "No motion to vary or supplement the provisions of this order shall be made except by a Minister of the Crown, and the question on any such motion shall be put forthwith." That was a motion of the House. Now, Mr. Speaker, I have not been in this House as long as you, but I have been here for 18 years, and I have never known any occasion when any Speaker has overruled a motion of the House of Commons. So, just to finish, sir, just to finish, you have said again and again you are a servant of this House, and we take you at your word. And I have heard you many times on points of order when people have challenged you said, "I cannot do X or Y because I am bound by a motion of the House." You've done that multiple times in my experience. So why are you overriding a motion of the House today?
The answer to the... I thank the right honourable gentleman for his point of order and also for his characteristic courtesy. The answer is simple. The right honourable gentleman referred to a motion, and he said that no motion in this context, for the purposes of Brexit, may be moved other than by a Minister of the Crown. 'Tis so. We are not treating here of a motion, but of an amendment to a motion. Well, I'm sorry, but there is a distinction between order.
I hope that argument makes sense. I love that basic argument. It's like, look, we're not talking about a motion, we're talking about an amendment. And because we're talking about an amendment, it is within my power to do what I am doing. That did not go over well. To put it mildly, that did not go over well. This video goes for an hour of them calling points of order in order to challenge Bercow. Let's watch a little bit more.
Distinction between a motion and an amendment. What the right honourable gentleman says about a motion, I accept, but it doesn't relate to an amendment. That's the answer. So no, there is no further. Point of order, Mr. Kenneth Clark. Kenneth Clark. Point of order. Point of order, Mr. Kenneth Clark.
Sorry, that is absolutely... Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in recent years,
Order, please. The Father of the House is on his feet. Let's hear the right honourable and learned gentleman. Point of order, Mr. Kenneth Clark.
In my opinion, in recent years, this House has seen a considerable diminution of its powers and has often seemed rather indifferent to the eroding of some of the powers we used to have to hold governments to account. And you, Mr. Speaker, have been assiduous in maximising the opportunities for the House to hold what happens to be the government of the day to account and giving the opportunity for debate and for voting. I find it unbelievable that people are putting such effort in trying to exclude the possibility of the House expressing its opinion on how it wishes handles matters. And I would suggest to some of my honourable friends, the ones that are getting somewhat overexcited, that perhaps they should don a yellow jacket and go outside to take part in this discussion.
I love that. I love that. He does have a point, by the way. Look, like I said, the powers of the government, for the most part, to some degree, gets eroded with one another. So the guy has a point. But either way, I'm not going to keep this one long. I'm going to end this one because I have one or two more that I want to get done. Theresa May's government is losing votes. They have a big major vote coming up on Tuesday, and she's trying a charm offensive in order to try to get people to vote her way. Up to this point, that is not working, and she is expected to lose that vote by magnificent numbers. And if she loses that vote, when she loses that vote, the government within a very short period of time is going to have to come up with a plan B. All the while going with this idea of what is going to take place with a no-deal Brexit, because it seems like that's where we're hitting. There's a potential what people are bringing up for a new election. I don't know if that's going to happen. And now, yes, I know Jeremy Corbyn wants it, Labour wants it, but the next election for Britain is not scheduled, for 2022, if I'm not mistaken. And if an election held today, it is very possible that Jeremy Corbyn will be Prime Minister, which elements of Labour doesn't want, and damn sure the Tory party doesn't want. In fact, the pound has taken a hit because they're believing that there may be a Jeremy Corbyn government in the wings. Oh, that's awesome. All right, I'll leave this here. Only 3 days for Plan B. Yeah, only 3 days for Plan B. 3 days for Plan B. All right. I'm going to end this here. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support the PayPal or Patreon. Thanks all.